So with pubs still shut across most of the world, I think it's only fair that we take on one of the age-old rugby pub questions, which is, if you could take one player and have them fill all 15 positions, who would it be? And part B to that question, why would it be Gethin Jenkins? If you've got any other answers other than Gethin that are therefore wrong, Justin Tipperick, Marnonu, both Vanapolas more recently, there's plenty of answers out there. Please let us know, respond to this video, respond in the comments below, and we'll read some out next week. And in order to try and get rugby back in the rest of the world as soon as possible, World Rugby put forward some new potential law variations that it's up to unions to decide whether or not they want to use. Amongst these, we had goal line dropouts, we had scrum resets being replaced with free kicks, we had an orange card potentially being introduced. Really, if they want to reduce the amount of contact involved in the game, then there's a few things they could codify that are already basically in rugby, things like wingers not being allowed to tackle, fly halves not entering the breakdown, and people have to stay 2 meters away from all props at all times. This week also saw a new team added to rugby for when it's back, because MLR added the LA Giltinis.
I beg your pardon?
The LA Giltinis.
I don't really know what that means.
Which are, I believe, the first rugby club to ever be named after a cocktail. Frankly, I think this is exactly what rugby needs. I think we need more teams inspired by Tom Cruise movies. I mean, my 15 of Quay Coopers from the beginning will be known as the Mavericks anyway, but we can have the Oklahoma Precogs join MLR, the Cincinnati Magnolias, the Portland Mission Impossible Freeze. I think there's so much room to have fun with this. So last week I asked you to tell me about your most underrated players, and one player I kind of wish I'd brought up that I very much think fits into this category was former Samoa centre Seilala Mapasua, who I was a huge fan of and such a huge part of that 2011 Samoa team that beat Australia, that beat Wales the following year, that beat Scotland. He was a phenomenal centre, and I had a chance to chat to him earlier this week. How's lockdown treating you? You're one of the few people I've seen whose hair is far shorter now than during your playing career. So I have lately been watching a lot of the 2011 World Cup and games around that, and I want to just begin by noting, you were so good in that period. How do you look back on that now, years on?
I see it was an opportunity lost or missed. We had a really strong squad, and I thought we were good enough to get out of the pool stages. Unfortunately, we come up against some really good teams in both Wales and South Africa. We're proud of the effort, but also kind of lament the fact that we didn't get out of the pool stages.
And then, obviously, after that World Cup, you go on and move to Japan. You mentioned your international career, and to just touch on your club career. And obviously, in that time, you moved to Kaimashi, which obviously has an amazing story around it. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and about your experience living there and playing there?
Beautiful place. I'd spent 3 years earlier living in Tokyo, and then I moved up to Kaimashi, which is probably the polar opposite of Tokyo Bay. And up until that point, my only view and ideas of Japan was Tokyo, and to go out to a place like Kaimashi, which has a lot of history behind it, especially with the tsunami and everything that happened there. It was it's probably one of the best experiences I've had. I got there 3 years after the tsunami, and the people there, they really look to the team as a source of inspiration and to gain some kind of happiness in what was a pretty trying time.
Obviously then, since you left Japan, or you've been very involved in Pacific Island player welfare, and I just wondered what the reality of that has been lately.
The challenge has been, like most players, the unknown. We're just making sure that that our players are aware of their options, and making sure that they have things in place. Because it's once rugby does resume, I think it's fair to say that's very different for a little while. And saying that, hopefully This is a chance for the world to hit the reset button and come up with a model that helps and favours all nations, and especially the Island nations and Tier 2 nations. So that's the hope.
I just wanted something to pick up on something we've been doing in the show this week and last. Who would you count as the most perhaps underrated players that you played with and against?
Oh, wow. Tough question. In my time in London Irish, I thought Paul Hodgson, our halfback, outstanding player. I think he probably didn't get the international accolades that I thought he probably deserved. When I was playing Super 12, we were playing test centres every weekend, so it was always tough. But I played with a guy, Neil Brew, in the midfield for Otago and the Islanders, and he went on to play for Bristol, and he was probably one of the most reliable midfielders I've played alongside. I found it tough playing against Brad Barrett at Sarries. He was quite young then, and he always made me work. He's definitely someone I rated quite highly.
So, some of your shouts for the world's most underrated player of the last period. Paul Tate says Nicolai Freitas, the Uruguay winger, a man very much after my own heart. We had a few shouts for Japan back rower Kazuki Himeno, who I rate so highly I figured it just dragged the world's appreciation of Himeno up to just stratospheric. Rika Swat says Johan Goosen, George May throws in a few tier 2 examples including Himeno, Lucas Abud from Brazil, Thomas Appleton from Portugal. There's a few really good shouts in there for lower key players. Matt Williams mentions a man who's always there or thereabouts in the Premiership, Jimmy Gopperth.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Carl Kotzia says Heinrich Brasseau never had a bad game for the box, which very much true, he was a brilliant player. Quacker Cape Town throws in Augustine Creevy, again, can get behind that. May Golding, TJ Perinara. A man only going by CC says Dan Fish, Dan Fish, Dan Fish, and I will say CC, I know your real name. And I agree. Brad Verman says Josh Navidi, that easily could have come from my mum. And finally, I think it's worth leaving it on this. JTS Brown said most underrated player is Uruguay's entire squad. Now we're talking. If you want to see more of this talking going on, you can subscribe right below to the World Rugby YouTube channel and you'll see more of this kind of stuff coming up from classic games this weekend through to more of the feed next Tuesday. See you then.